Maker Assembly is, I guess, an excuse in a way to gather a load of interesting makers and observers of maker cultures together in one room to have a more in-depth conversation about what making is, what the role of makers is, and why we should make.
Most people still have never heard of a maker or Fab Lab or Makerspace. I mean, 99% of the population hasn't heard of any of that.
Usually makers, they are showcasing their tech, their products, but they are really bad at talking about what they're doing and how.
The conversation about making is very one-sided. It tells one story, which is about how fantastic it is to make.
There's a lot of childlike enthusiasm around maker communities, and it's good to kind of grow up a little bit and reflect on what's happened and what's been done, and make informed decisions about the way the community should grow in the future.
There are precedents you can look at to understand what our activities mean in relation to the outside world and what the potential is, but also what the risks and limitations are.
It's the argument for why humanities are really important inside of education. Like, engineering and tech are not the only thing you should focus on. Those should be informed by the outputs of, humanities and sociology and economics.
If you sit around and wait for somebody else to solve your problems, they're just never going to get solved. And they're never going to get solved in the way that they benefit the people who maybe don't have a voice.
I think as a design community, it is our responsibility. If design is about social engagement, if the hacker community, if the making community is about social engagement, then how do we do that social engagement?
I guess we need to enter the frame of mind where the fact that we are outside of our spaces is the norm and not just the exception.
How are we enabling communities, and also how do you go and meet them where they're at?
It's not just about the community space, but it's about reclaiming ownership of a lot of other spaces that otherwise have a more commercial purpose, and trying to blend in.
How can we create an inclusive space? That all takes time, and this really sort of transplanting across the city is not conducive to that.
If you're close to where things are made, you'll have a greater opportunity to have transparency, to be able to see the decisions, and you'll see where things come from.
We need to get into a world that is not just about profit margins and selling our goods and doing things for good PR. It's about understanding that if you start at a much more grassroots level, then together as a wider community, we will be able to move forward in a far better, far more aware, far more resourced, and far more productive way.